Welcome to Church of the Beatitudes. We are glad that you are here with us. And for those of you who this is your first time here, a big welcome to you. We thank you for having taken the time to try and see what we're about here at Church of the Beatitudes. Also, for those of you watching us online, either live or perhaps at a later time, we thank you also for your time and being here. One of the things that we've missed about doing church together since COVID is having an announcement period. One of the reasons why we did away with that is because we were trying to limit the amount of time that we were spending inside. However, we have discovered from our company that works our HVAC system for us, is that the capacity that we have to be able to circulate the air and keep everything safe is really good. And so because of that, we're going to start expanding just very slowly what our amount of time that we spend together. And because of that, now we will start sharing with you up front in announcements what is going on a regular basis. So Janelle, what is going on?
Back in the saddle again, huh?
Yes.
I have a ton of stuff to share. First of all, if you were here last weekend, you would have seen a lot of families out in the courtyard for our kite flying event. And we're so motivated to keep that momentum going that this next week we are doing trunk or treat.
Yes.
And a costume party.
I'm excited about that.
That's right. We will be on October 31st, right after service, out in the parking lot. So if you have a vehicle or a motorcycle.
Yeah, I'm bringing mine.
You get to decorate it and bring prepackaged candies to hand out to the tiny humans, and we'll just have a wonderful time.
Yeah. Now, do you consider yourself a tiny human?
I'm a medium human.
Oh, okay. So
And
no
you
candy.
are?
No candy for you.
Oh, come on.
Well, you said tiny people, so that would be me. I'm tiny.
I hope somebody gives me some candy. Anyway, we have another thing coming up. Do you like donuts? Woo! Do you like fellowship? How about fellowship in a donut? There we go. Plan B is going to be doing donut boat rides.
Donut boat rides.
You know what that is? Tempe Town Lake. 10 people get in a gigantic donut, and they hang out for an hour.
And what happens once you eat it? Do you just kind of like fall into the water?
No, you don't fall into the water. If you want to get in on this, the seats are going fast, and you need to speak with Steven Schermitzler. It is $11 per seat. I will be there, and I hope that we'll get that boat filled. So see him after service. And we are also doing a Faith in Action Thanksgiving food drive to benefit Nourish Phoenix. We do this every year. And now through November 14th, you can bring your donations to church on Sundays. There is a list of food items on the table in the foyer. If you didn't see it, stop by on the way out and you can get that list. And don't forget, today Arts Council meets right after service in room 9. Do you know where that's at?
That's the new room over in the offices, I believe.
That's right. So just head towards the front office. And there's going to be a new art exhibit that starts next Sunday. A quilter and fiber artist named Erica Warren will be here. So come on back and check that out. Do you have a few things you want to talk about? Because you're holding. What is that?
Yes. You will notice in either the pew where you are seated or on one of the chairs, there's this card. This card actually has two sides to it. On the first side, it says, Song Lyrics Scan Me. One of the reasons why we have not yet gone back to having the words of the songs up on the screen is because of social distancing. And that allows for 6 feet apart we're supposed to have. If you look back in our tech booth, right in the middle, that would not allow us to get that 6 feet. So instead, we give you this as an option. You can scan that, and then you will have the words to all the songs. We are hoping that as the COVID numbers start to come down, that we will be able to actually start using our screens again for that ability. The other one is on the back side of it, says, New Here, Scan Me. One of the things that we are trying to do is become aware of those of you who are visiting us. If you scan here, what it will do is it will allow you to gather more information about who we are as a church and for you to share with us who you are. Now, if that's something you're willing to try for us, we would appreciate it. If at any time you decide, hey, I'm going to opt out, you can do that. You can just opt out of it and you won't get information from us. But it is some way that we want to be able to keep in touch with those of you who are visiting, and if you want to learn more about what we are about here at Church of the Beatitudes. Okay, now, you don't have to raise your hand, but you can answer for yourself. How many of you had breakfast this morning? And if you did you have options to choose from? When you thought about, what am I going to have for breakfast? Did you have something that you normally go to, or did you think, well, I could either do this, this, or this?
Donuts.
Donuts. How many of you, if you didn't have breakfast, was that by choice or necessity? Choice or necessity? If you chose not to have breakfast, and then necessity being that perhaps you don't have enough food in your home. The majority of Americans do have enough food. So what in the world does the Beatitude, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, they shall be filled, what in the world does that have to do with us in America today, where the majority of us have more than enough food? What is that connection? That's what we're going to be exploring today throughout our worship service. So now is your opportunity to be able to, all the pressures and the stress and the stuff you've been going through in life, right now you can just set that aside. You really can. And you can allow yourself to be truly present in this moment. And one of the ways that we have to enable you to do that is music. Music allows us to kind of be mindful of where we are in this very moment. And so please allow this first song to do that for you as we open ourselves to experience the divine in whatever way that each of us individually may experience that. Some of you have mentioned that you've missed the organ, and it is back. And so We were having technical difficulties with it, and the last time our organist was here, it was making all sorts of weird noises. But those have been fixed, and so we are glad to be able to have that back with us and to enhance our worship experience. Another opportunity that we have to enhance our worship experience is to pull on the gifts and talents of individuals who use their creativity to be able to share meaning with others. And an individual who does that very effectively is Mark Stoddard. And so Mark, if you would please come forward. Mark has done a lot of work in the arts. So tell us a little bit about where your passion is and how you use that to share ideas with other people.
Yeah, well, thank you, first of all, for letting me be with you this morning. It's wonderful to be with you. I had the privilege of kind of watching you guys online throughout the pandemic, and Steven Schermitzler is a good friend and colleague. We've done a lot of theater together, and my oldest son is actually singing with your quartet this morning. So Philip is here this morning as well. And my wife, Rachel, is over here. She's also a choral music educator and vocalist as well, so the arts kind of run in the family.
You have a gifted family.
Yeah.
How come you got all the gifts and I didn't get it very many when it comes to the arts?
You know, I'm not going to answer that.
Okay.
So, but thank you for letting me be here. I appreciate the context of that, as artists, all of us have a point of view, whether it's a visual artist like the beautiful paintings on the back wall or the lovely stained glass window here. It gives us an opportunity to kind of think of the world in a different way and maybe see it from a different perspective. Music has been a huge part of the Christian and church and religious and spiritual traditions across the globe for many years, for centuries. But theater is not often woven into worship a lot of times. Sometimes it is with kind of a call and response with the congregations in a worship experience. But my calling for the last many years has been as a theater artist. I direct, I act, I write, and over the years I've worked for many different kind of religious organizations and shared stories from a spiritual perspective, basically, and a spiritual curiosity is what I like to portray with that. So that's kind of my calling with that, and I've done it, in the Valley here for close to 30 years.
Wow.
So it's a joy to be here with you guys.
And today we get the opportunity to see one of those pieces that you've prepared.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, what it is that we're going to be watching?
Sure, yeah. About 5 years ago, I wrote a short drama that we captured on video. You're going to see that in a moment. It won't be performed live. It'll be on part of this video. That kind of was addressing some of the things that I was concerned about just as a person who was living in our culture and society, and was concerned about the divisions that we were experiencing. Lo and behold, I didn't realize that they may even be getting larger as we're moving, farther past 5 years ago. And then 2 years ago, my youngest son, who you'll also see in the video, he was a music major at NAU and was ahead of the a cappella music up there. And his a cappella group recorded this really beautiful song that I was like, oh, wow, that really speaks to me. And then kind of a light bulb went off and I said, hey, I think there's a way to mash these two together. If you've ever seen kind of a mashup of two creative genres, this is what transpired. So I edited these together, and hopefully it's a time for you as an observer to just contemplate. Think about what is being said, think about the music, think about maybe the questions that you have or the point of view that you are considering as you're looking at your world from a spiritual lens.
Thank you so much, Mark, for being here with us today and sharing this creative work that you've done with us.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoy the video. Thank you.
Even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream.
I remember reciting Dr. King's speech when I was a kid in school. I have a dream.
I have a dream.
I have a dream.
It's been 52 years since that speech.
Progress has been made.
But have we changed?
People seem scared,
Angry,
Disconnected,
suspicious.
ignorant.
violent.
Some people see a headscarf and expect radical ideas.
Some people see my skin color and expect anger or violence.
Some people see white privilege and expect me to be entitled.
But where is the dream now?
Our religious liberties are under attack.
Protesters accuse police of racial rioting.
Homegrown terrorism is on the rise.
Politicians choose divisive rhetoric instead of compromise.
There is a growing disparity between wealth and poverty.
Immigrants feel unwelcomed.
I realized there was work to be done.
So I hit the streets.
Join the protest.
Used social media
But as I pumped my fist,
and raised my sign.
and posted my views,
I started to lose my way. But the more I demanded others to think like me,
more distant they became.
it was me versus them.
Black versus white.
Muslim versus Christian. But at the end of the day, one thing matters.
When I face someone who looks different,
Who thinks differently?
Or worships differently.
What will I do? And that's why I've come here.
Away from the noise.
to this prayer vigil,
Dr. King's legacy reminds us to stop, pause, and reflect.
it's not about how much we can change others,
But how we can change ourselves. I have decided to stick with love, for hate is too great a burden to bear.
Love is the only force capable of turning an enemy into a friend.
we must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools.
If change is going to happen, it needs to start with me.
I still have a dream.
One of the disadvantages of being a progressive Christian minister is that I get accused very often by other Christians for not believing in this, the Bible. And I tell you what, I wish that I didn't believe and value this book. Because I find in my life that the more I read this, the more it messes things up for me. And it didn't happen just like decades ago. It happens continually. I don't know how many times I have read this book from cover to cover. Read it all. Many times. And every single time I find something in it that that just makes me think a little different. And I realized that if I wanted to stay comfortable in my beliefs, it would be best if I would just not read it anymore. But ever since I was a kid, I've been compelled to read it. I don't know why, but it just continually pulls me back to want to read this. And it happened again this week. I mean, I thought doing the Beatitudes was going to be fairly easy. I mean, how much can you get messed up when it comes to the Beatitudes? They're just one-liners. That's all it is. And so when I first started reading for this sermon on the Beatitude, the one where it talks about, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied, or they will be filled, I thought, this is going to be an easy week for me. Because all I have to do is spiritualize that beatitude. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. That's going to be really easy to deal with. All you have to think about is, what is righteousness? And the key idea of righteousness is that which is to be made right. And the other use of that word in the original language has the idea of justice. So I thought, well, I could talk about the idea being that what we're called to be as Christians in this beatitude is to be right with God, to be considered just with God. Then I realized that I was preaching in this congregation, and for some people, that may make them uncomfortable. This idea that somehow we need to be made right with God, that somehow we are distanced from God, some of our members are not comfortable with. So I said, well, I could also talk about the idea that blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, meaning this sense of being right with oneself, of being aligned with who one is, being true to one's values. And that would be the sense of being hungering and thirsting for being right with oneself. And then I thought, well, should I stop on just the individual level? Nah, I'm not going to do that. I need to expand it. So I took it even further and I said, not only does it mean to be right with oneself, but it means to be right with other people. Which means then that, excuse me, I needed to focus upon the idea of justice and righteousness on a larger scale than just the individual level. As we saw in the video just now where it talked about change starts with ourselves, I agree with that 100%. In fact, Leo Tolstoy, he says the following. In a quote, he says, "In our world, everybody thinks about changing humanity, and nobody thinks of changing her or himself. But if all we do is just change ourselves, how will we see a bigger change in our world?" So maybe to hunger and thirst after righteousness also has this idea of righteousness that is willing to exceed just one's own self, and that one becomes concerned and attentive to other people, to what is happening in society, to what is happening to the marginalized, what is happening to people who don't have a voice that is being heard by those in power. And I thought, that's the sermon right there. I'm done. Add a few illustrations to make sure I get my 15 minutes in or 20. And then I made a mistake. I went back to the Bible. And as I opened it up, I went back into Luke. Because Luke also has the Beatitudes. But it doesn't have as many of them. Instead of having 8, it has like 3 or 4. And then it has a bunch of woes. Woe is this, woe is that. But I thought, at least I should look. And so I went there and I looked and I discovered something that created angst within me. It said, "Blessed are the hungry, for they shall be satisfied." That was it. Blessed are the hungry. Nothing about and thirsting for righteousness. Just blessed are the hungry. And I thought, wow, why? Why did the writer of Luke leave out this other part? And then I decided, well, I better find the answer. So I started reading more, and as I read more, I discovered something. That there seems to be really good evidence that the individual who wrote the Gospel of Luke probably was more accurate in saying what the historical Jesus may have actually said while he was here on earth. There seems to be other Gospels that are not a part of our Bible. They have this beatitude in it, and they have ones that parallel that of Luke and not Matthew. So it became clear to me that if Jesus did speak these beatitudes, that more than likely what he said was closer to what Luke had than Matthew had. So blessed are the hungry. And I thought, oh man, that messes it all up. There goes my whole spiritualizing this idea of righteousness and hungering and thirsting for what is right and just for oneself and society. And now I got to start thinking about being hungry. So I begin to do studies on that and read about hunger and its prevalence in not only America, but especially throughout the world. And I discovered that 10% of Americans have what is called food insecurity. Some individuals speculate that just here in Arizona, we have 2 million people that have what is called food insecurity, meaning they're not certain where their next meal is going to come from, or the food that they do have, they do not believe to be adequate to meet their nutritional needs. And I thought, man, that's powerful. I could preach on that. And I thought, well, but you can't talk about hunger without talking about poverty. So I Googled poverty. What percentage of Americans in 2020 were or fell in the category, socioeconomic category of living in poverty? What I found was in 2020, the number grew 1%. So it went from 10.5% of Americans, about 13 million, almost 14, it went up to 1% to 11.5%. And the majority of people think that was because of COVID. So I thought, wow, there's the connection between those that are hungry and those that are poor. And the reason they're the reason they're hungry is they don't have enough money. And then I thought, wow, I could talk about the SNAP, about how people can get food stamps. And I could talk about the food banks, St. Mary's here, and I could encourage you to donate $800 to St. Mary's Food Bank, because if you do, not only will you make you feel good inside that you've done something to help other people, but you will actually be able to write all $800 off on your state taxes. I thought, man, this sermon's starting to come together. In fact, it may actually be better than this spiritualizing it. And I should have stopped right there, but I didn't. Sometimes I'm not really smart. And I found an article that just blew my whole second idea of my sermon out of the water. And it says, the headline of the article says, hunger is not the problem, obesity is. And I thought, what? People are poor, which means they don't have enough money to buy food. That's why they're hungry. And then I realized that those individuals who are lower income, 39% of them, 39% are obese. It's like, whoa. Here I was making this link between poverty and hunger, and yet those that are in poverty, 40% of them tend to be obese. What's going on? And I thought, it's because they don't have enough money to buy the right kind of food. That's the problem. So, if we would continue the tax relief that we're giving to families, if we would continue to give that to them and give them free child care that the Democrats want to do, if we did all that, then they would have more money, they'd be able to buy better quality food, and they would not be obese. Okay, so I dealt with that. I should have stopped there again. But I decided, well, if those in poverty are obese, what about those that aren't in poverty? So I Googled the percentage of individuals who are middle class income on the socioeconomic, right in the middle. What percentage of them are obese? 41%. 2% more. 2% more than those who are poor. What in the world is going on? I thought the reason why individuals that are poor were obese was because they didn't have adequate funds to buy good food. I don't know how many times I made that argument to people. And then I realized that people that do have enough money to buy food, that they are about the same percentage of likelihood to be obese as those who are really, really poor. And there was a part of me that wanted to just to blame Americans for being lazy, for not exercising enough. And I should have stopped there. But I kept reading. And I realized that we have a serious problem. Listen to this. Human beings are simply ill-equipped to deal with a landscape of cheap, convenient, calorie-dense foods that have been specifically engineered to be irresistible. The inability to navigate our food environment is as near universal as inabilities get. The people engineering the food that's all around us are doing it with the specific intention to override ordinary human willpower. They've been spending billions of dollars on it, and they are successful. Sugar, salt, and fat. Those three, used well, are what keep us addicted to certain types of food that will lead eventually, if one is not careful, to obesity. People are making millions of dollars. Companies are making millions of dollars by finding the ideal formula to put into our foods that will play either on our desire for sweets, sugar, our desire for salt. And unfortunately, I didn't realize this, and at first it made it sound like really gross, is that we like the taste of fat. There's a thing called the Bliss Point. And here's how it works. There was an individual they interviewed who's a mathematician. And he took all of his knowledge when he was employed by this food company to figure out what they called the Bliss Point. And what that means is how much sugar do we need to add to food in order to get to that point where when you eat it, you're going, whoa, that's good. And if it's good, guess what? You want more of it. So the likelihood of you going back and buying more of that product goes up. Now, they understand that if they go beyond the bliss point, that you're going to probably go, ooh, that's way too sweet. I mean, practice this at home. If you drink coffee and you add sugar to it, just keep adding sugar. And a point will come when you're finally going to go, ooh, no. So they understand that they got to get that sweet spot. Did you get the pun? Sweet spot? But anything more than that is going to turn off the customers, but it's also going to cost them more money. So they aim for that point of bliss. And they do it with sugar, they do it with salt, and they do it with fat. And these foods that they are producing, that we find on our supermarkets, that are placed at eye level so that we're more likely to reach for them, those are the foods that will continue to give us empty calories and create a perfect storm within our bodies. So, what in the world does this have to do with Beatitudes? And what in the world does it have to do with that painting, Blessed are the hungry and thirsty? I'll give you my idea. If we look at the text that Matthew puts out there, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, there was a reason he added those words to it. And I think those need to be considered today, even though they may not have been the original saying. But the writer of Matthew wanted us to catch something. You know, for so long, the church is focused upon the hungry. And we should. Poverty and hunger is a terrible thing to exist in a country that is as wealthy as ours. But you know what? There's a group of people that are really happy as long as the Christians just focus on that. That's the food industry. Because they'll keep making their money. They're just doing what our economy demands of us, that we produce products that people will buy more and more of. But if we really want righteousness, if we want a world, if we want a country that is just, do we have a responsibility to think about what these companies, just for the sake of the almighty dollar, are doing to us? Imagine, if you would, that you had to play a tennis match against Serena Williams. I know what would happen if I had to play Serena Williams. It would be a very fast game. Now, the question is the problem with my forehand? Yes and no. The problem is I'm playing against Serena Williams. We're living in a world where the food industry is Serena Williams. And our forehand is our willpower. These companies have realized that if they tap into those three basic tastes, sugar, salt, and fat, they're going to keep making money. And my question to myself and to you is that are we okay with that? Is that a just practice? In Jesus' time, he was dealing with real hunger because of war and droughts and the infertility of the soil. Lack of food was a reality. Today, in the 21st century in the United States of America, it is not a problem. There's plenty of food. The problem is poverty and the way that food is being used to make money at our expense. And do we just ignore it? Would Jesus have talked about, would that have been one of the Beatitudes if Jesus was alive today? Blessed are those who resist the food industry. I don't know, but it sure makes me wonder. Martin Luther King said the following: injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. For the sake of the dollar, is this an injustice? And if we just ignore it, is it just one more injustice that we are tolerating as human beings? I don't know the answer. But I do know that before I can find the answer, I have to have awareness. And I think that's really what these Beatitudes were all about, is making us aware of the human condition that we find ourselves in, not only in the first century, but in the 21st century. So now that you are aware, what are you going to do about it? That's a question I have to ask myself. And it's one I hope that you will ask yourself.
and thirst after righteousness. For they shall be
If you are curious, some of the work that I do beyond being almost, hopefully, prayers for a member in discernment with the Church of the Beatitudes, I do a lot of work around those very things that Pastor Tony spoke on today. And so if you are curious about how to get engaged in beyond just donating money and or food and or time, please definitely reach out to me. I can get you connected to the groups in Arizona that work towards anything from teaching young kids how to cook healthy food to learning how to grow your own food that are indigenous to our land here in Arizona. So please do reach out to me. But in the meantime, I hope that you join me in prayer. You are blessed when you are at the end of your rope. With less of you, there is more God. You're blessed when you've lost what is most dear to you. Only then can you be embraced by the one who is most dear. You're blessed when you're content with just who you are, with no more or no less. For it's in that moment that you find yourself proud owners of everything that cannot be bought. You're blessed when you worked up a good appetite for God, for justice, for kindness, and for love. For all of those things are the food and drink that is the best meal you'll ever eat. You're blessed when you care. And at that moment of being careful, you find yourselves cared for. Blessed are you, beloved friends, for God is with you always. May we pray that we remain curious and that we do so with justice, kindness, and love in all that we do. Amen.
Children of God, we are marching to Zion. Children of God, we are marching to Zion. Children of God, we are marching to Zion. Step by step, all the way. In my walk, you can see me trying. In my talk, you can hear me trying. In my walk, you can see me trying. Step by step, all the way. Children of God, we are marching to Zion. Children of God, we are marching to Zion. Children of God, we are marching.
pray that we keep on marching. Christians pray that we keep on marching. Christians pray that we keep on marching step by step all the way. Children of God, we're marching to Zion. Children of God, we're marching to Zion. Yes, we're marching, children of God. We're marching to Zion. Step by step, all the way. Step by step, all the way. Step by step, all the way. All the way. All the way. All the
I tell you what, I feel like, you know, there's those bands that come out and they have like the warm-up. I feel like my sermons are kind of the warm-up to this. I mean, that is just, you know, that's one of the things that is so exciting about Church of the Beatitudes, is here at Church of the Beatitudes, we believe that worship isn't about just one thing. It's not about the sermon, it's not about that or this. What we believe is that each of you have a different idea about the divine. You have a different way of understanding that. And so we try to create an experience that you will experience that divine at different places. And for me, what just happened is that moment. And I'm just glad to be a part of a spiritual community that allows that kind of diversity to be experienced. And so again, thank you all very, very much from myself. Before you leave, our tradition is that we offer a blessing. And I don't know if the ancients were right or wrong, but the ancients believed in the power of words. And they believed that when a word was spoken, when a blessing was given, that somehow inherently in those words there was power. Now, they may be right, they may be wrong, but I do believe that somehow when we hear things, that it does impact our lives. So please receive this blessing. As you go out this week, may you be blessed with a sense of serenity. As you look around the world and you see the injustices, you see the way that people are being mistreated, and that is being allowed to take place, the disparity between the uber wealthy and the poor, as you see all of that, may you have the serenity to accept it if there's nothing you can do about it. But may you also be blessed with a sense of courage. That if an opportunity arises for you to do something, to make a difference, to make life a little bit easier for someone, either through your actions or your words or using your power as a citizen, may you find the courage to do those things. And then may you be blessed with a spirit of love. Because no matter what we do in life, if it is not tied into a spirit of love, just like we heard on that video earlier, if it's not tied into a spirit of love, it's worth nothing. So may you receive that spirit of love. And this week, as you go out, please make love real for another human being. Amen.